Hello, everyone. My name is Gregory, and this is The View from Out Here. We're taking a little trip back in history for a few days after Barack Obama became President-elect Barack Obama for his first term. Join me, won't you? It's November 9th, 2008, and here's what I wrote. There's an old joke that goes the epitome of mixed emotions is watching your mother-in-law drive off a cliff in your Maserati. That tired little dad joke bookends my experience on November 4th, 2008. American voters selected Barack Obama to be the next leader of the free world. Now, personally, I think it was a good choice given the candidates most of us were unaware of. But when the news busted out of CNN the second the polls closed in California, I didn't feel much of anything. I felt like Barack Obama seemed to feel when he was delivering his victory speech. He had won an election that no one, including Barack, would have ever imagined possible. But he didn't come across as jubilant. He came across as serious, reverent, focused, and disciplined. A foreshadowing of what we might expect of this young, black, brilliant mind directing the affairs of state and possibly affecting the affairs of the entire world. Congratulations, America. Good call. Tremendous possibilities exist now that didn't exist on November 3rd, and America grew up a little bit in one fateful day. Racism is certainly not over because we elected this man any more than sexism would have been ended had we elected Hillary Clinton instead. But I do believe that the question about the qualifications of and the electorate's willingness to elect a woman or a person of color to the highest office in the land, that question has been answered. I live in a better, more enlightened nation than I did a week ago, and I didn't even have to pack my belongings and move to Canada. All I had to do was vote. The reason I wasn't celebrating like the jubilant crowd at Grant Park in Chicago was because in California, my people got set back a step or two by Proposition 8. Now, Proposition 8 was a ballot measure in California just south of here, adding discrimination against gays and lesbians to the state constitution. In California today, marriage is constitutionally defined as a union of one man and one woman. Same-sex marriage is now constitutionally illegal in California. Guess what? A significant reason for the passage of that little piece of fascism was higher voter turnout among the very people who supported Barack Obama, Black and Hispanic voters. Now, I'm not trying to blame people of color for the passage of Proposition 8. Plenty of white people voted for it too. But minority voters voted for it in huge majorities, while white voters were generally split down the middle on the question. Hispanic voters, for example, went 53-47 in favor of Proposition 8, and black voters went 70-30 in favor. It seemed odd to me that the very people who might be expected to understand a struggle for acceptance into the bounty of full citizenship would vote to cut back the existing rights of someone else. Minority voters, the pundit said, tend to vote more conservatively. Huh? Barack Obama was a conservative choice? The fact that these votes happened in the same election leads me to the conclusion that we haven't come as far as our choice for president might suggest. We are still feeling the vestiges of the culture war being waged by the Republican Party. Now, in all fairness, voters in California were also being pummeled with messages about gays and lesbians recruiting your children into a tragic life of self-destruction and debauchery as if it were possible to do so. I'm pretty sure that would have an impact on quite a few voters. I can only hope that the Obama administration can help us as a people recognize how much of our reactions and socio-political leanings have more to do with irrational fear than intelligence or will. I believe he'll be that kind of leader. I believe that same-sex marriage will become reality in the U.S., and it is likely to happen in my lifetime. The reason is because we live in a democratic republic. That means that we have freedoms that are restricted only by the bed of laws that we agree to live by as citizens of the whole. Constitutions, both federal and state, lay the groundwork for fairness, from which all other freedoms spring. But those constitutions all agree that the playing field, from a legal standpoint at least, must be fair and that the majority may not legally tyrannize the minority. Proposition 8 goes against that foundation and will eventually, like slavery and prohibition of interracial marriage, be overturned. Proposition 8 is a litmus test of whether or not we as a people are willing to stand up for the concept of fair and equal treatment under the law. What California voters did on November 4th was to create a separate but equal institution of marriage. Several other states, including my own state of Oregon, have done the same with legislative actions directed at separating same-sex unions from full recognition by the state. For straight people, marriage is recognized by the state and certain rights are attached to it. Proposition 8 says the same rights are not available to gay and lesbian people, and at some point the courts are going to have to recognize that. I would have hoped that Black voters in particular would see that for what it really is. In regards to civil rights, separate does not mean equal. Separate equals separate, and it's unconstitutional. There are plenty of legal precedents to support that. But I fear we will continue to play this game with each other for another decade or so. But its days are numbered, just like the other legal errors that we have since corrected. What I find disappointing about the passage of this proposition in California is that the very people who have a reason to understand my struggle for full citizenship didn't. With this election, we grew up a little bit, but that growth was tempered by 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Okay, now that was 2008, a few days after Barack Obama was elected to his first term. So why am I bringing this up now? Well, I'm glad you asked. I wanted to paint a picture of what it was like before my community was granted full citizenship in the bounty of the United States. The full protection of the law, just like any other citizen should have. I'm, of course, talking about gay marriage. I'm going to play you a clip from NBC from earlier this year on this very subject. Have a look.
Sort of the consequences beyond Roe, if we can. You've noted that Justice Thomas indicated that the court needs to take another look at cases like Oberfeld, the same-sex marriage case that went before the court. Does putting that language in a decision like this start to signal to lawyers and legislatures around the country, all right, now it's time to come up with a case to challenge these things, and the laws might change, the decisions from the court might change in terms of striking down the right to same-sex marriage?
Yeah, Justice Thomas often gets discounted. He's thought of as writing these more extreme concurring or dissenting opinions. But consider this, for Alito to have written the opinion, presumably Justice Thomas, who is the senior most justice on the bench who would have concurred with that opinion, he would have assigned Alito the opinion. So Justice Thomas arguably has some power in this area, and if he ends up with the majority, some of his positions on reevaluating cases like Obergefell or any of the others that he mentioned could be a real possibility. And it just is so striking because Alito, again, I'm repeating myself, goes to such pains to say this is the only thing that we're dealing with today. But if you are going to look at some of those other entrenched rights, Griswold, which has to do with, Griswold is the case that that arguably was poorly reasoned, but it goes to contraception, to the right of married couples in their home to use contraception. And an interesting fact, even at the time of Griswold, the Connecticut legislature was actually pushing to do away with that law because it was a silly law. It didn't make a lot of sense. But yet, because the Supreme Court grafted this right from the Constitution onto the populace, it became controversial. And by the way, even Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg recognized that Roe was problematic because it created a right, it took that power away from the state legislatures, and created a controversy when At the time, state legislatures were kind of moving towards liberalizing abortion. You didn't have the evangelical push then that you do today. Now, obviously, I wasn't there. I can't take the pulse of what was going on in America at the time. But Justice Ginsburg, other liberal thinkers, Mark Tushnet, have all criticized Roe. So in a sense, we knew this was coming. Does it mean that substantive due process, the idea that unenumerated rights in the Constitution are dead going forward? I don't know. That could go either way. Maybe they are dead, and the only thing keeping them alive is reliance interests, that we've relied on them for a while. But then again, a lot of people relied on Roe for a long time.
In his decision overturning Roe v. Wade, corrupt Supreme Court Associate Justice Clarence Thomas suggested that gay marriage should be looked at in light of the legal device the court created to overturn Roe v. Wade. The fact is that the Magapublican Party, having stripped away women's rights to bodily autonomy, are now coming after my right to marry the person that I love. I have trouble squaring both of those things with the Constitution of the United States. Here's the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. It reads in Section 1, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of the citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. The radical activist, corrupt, hyper-conservative, Magapublican Supreme Court excused their ruling in Roe v. Wade using the Due Process Clause. I'm having trouble reconciling that with the 9th Amendment to the Constitution, which reads, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. The Constitution does not mention abortion or homosexuality. According to the 9th Amendment, that right is retained by the people. I'm having the same cognitive dissonance that I had back in 2008 when gay marriage was not considered legal and abortion was. This radical activist, corrupt, hyper-conservative, Magapublican Supreme Court is taking us back to the days when there were different classes of citizenship, some of which had rights guaranteed by the Constitution and others that did not. That's unconstitutional, but then I'm not a lawyer. But as a person who has sworn an oath to it, the language of the Constitution sounds pretty clear to me. What does it say to you? To make a long story short, if you're not a white Christian male of wealth and power, the Magapublican Party is coming for you. Fasten your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen, and put your seat in an upright position. We're about to encounter some turbulence. I want to thank you for hanging with me so far, and if you're finding anything of value here, please take a second to like and subscribe with the buttons below. And don't forget about my books, Basic Video Production, Everything You Need to Know to Make Video Like a Professional, and Searching for Saint Germain, The True Story of a Gay Catholic Orphan. You'll find links for both in the description below. And if you have Kindle Plus, you can read both of them for free. Go do it. Right now, I'm almost done. Meanwhile, my name is Gregory, and this has been The View from Out Here. Much love.
Some kind. Well, it's almost summer.